Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Nick Baldwin. Welcome to Beyond the Brand, Realify Beyond the Brand. We are sitting down today, myself and Leslie Jackson. I'm so rude. Leslie, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Leslie Jackson, Nick Baldwin's co-host in this journey. So super happy to
Well,
be here.
thank you. I appreciate you being here. And in this episode, we're going to be sitting down with Ken Pozek, who is doing amazing things in video, all different video styles, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. There's how many followers you have on those platforms, Ken?
Almost 100,000 between all of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he knows something about growing a following, what types of videos to produce, how to brand yourself as the, expert in your market. Ken's out of Orlando, and Ken has different channels, right? Like you have your YouTube channel for the Pozek group, but then you have an Instagram channel for everything Orlando news and happenings, right? Like what is it called? The Orlando Reel?
Yeah, the Orlando Reel is kind of all things real estate, theme parks, and living in Orlando. So we cover everything that anybody would want to know if they live here and or are thinking of living here.
Yeah, that's pretty genius.
Yeah.
Other agents, I think, try to do that, but they don't do it at the level at which you're doing it. And I feel like you were always kind of doing stuff like that. Like you would always kind of go through articles. I remember you telling me you would go through articles every week and just kind of collect like the headlines, and then you would go live and just kind of talk about that. But now I feel like you're doing it really purposefully with its own channel, and the channel is growing, and you've got billboards up around Orlando, and Disney World is now like aware of what you're doing and they're reaching out to you. So it's just kind of like evolved over time, which is awesome. But we'll get into that. Ken's team in Orlando, the Pozek group with Keller Williams, has 428 units sold and pending year to date, with around 260 million in volume. So they're doing some business too. They're not just making videos.
Yeah.
So I want to just kind of talk about your overall video marketing strategy right now. Like it evolved over time. We'll get into that. But like, what are you really trying to accomplish? Are you trying to sell homes? Are you trying to get the news out? Are you trying to build awareness? Like, what's the strategy?
Yeah, I think I mean my end game that I've been telling people that I have like a passion for is I want to create the city of tomorrow in Orlando. And I think that I can do that by having influence with politicians and business people. And oh, by the way, we'll probably sell billions of dollars of real estate along the way. And so our media has opened the door for leads like crazy, like it gets me agent referrals. It gets me people that want to join my team. So like recruiting has never been easier. It makes everything easier or unnecessary with this overarching idea that I just want to be able to infiltrate all things Orlando and help it grow into the next Austin or the next big city. So I'm excited.
That's
That's
amazing.
yeah, that's a pretty big goal. The city of tomorrow. Don't they have that already? Tomorrowland? They have that, right?
They do, yeah. Epcot is the experimental prototype community of
That's
tomorrow.
okay. We can do it again. Um, so like you you have so much content that you're putting out. You're doing real estate videos, you're doing videos on the community, you're doing videos on what's going on in Orlando. How do you decide on what to put out and what's the cadence?
We've got I mean the three buckets that we oscillate from is again like theme parks. We do a little bit of theme park news, like you mentioned, like Disney, Universal, SeaWorld, Gatorland, all these different places. They invite us out to cover their new rides, their new attractions, and so we will do that because it's cool. Like whether you're just interested in potentially visiting Orlando or you live here, you want to know. Then we talk about real estate. So we do moving to and living in. So the newest $1 billion development, the newest condo building, the newest development coming into the area, average price point, like all that kind of normal real estate stuff. A little bit of real estate, walking tours and that sort of thing, but it's one of our buckets. And then living in Orlando. So it's the news around Orlando, but from a real estate agent's perspective. I think that there's a lot of people that will do drone footage or they'll do like news, but they forget the last part, which is we're trying to sell real estate. And so we'll talk about, hey, there's a new like I did a live last night and it was like, hey, there's a new target coming to this new area in Lake Nona. And yeah, that might sound silly to you, but as somebody who lives in the area, that there's 25,000 rooftops and you have to drive an hour to get to Target, that's not awesome. So like, what else do we need? We need Whole Foods, we need Trader Joe's, we need Sprouts, we need something kind of like in this area. And I think that if that happens, here's what happens to home values. And so we just kind of slant it towards real estate all the time, but talk about the news. And so it works. It resonates with everybody that lives here, and then also resonates with people that might be casually maybe interested in one day moving here.
I just have a quick follow-up to that, Leslie. Sorry, and I know you have a question, but I just have a quick follow-up to that. It's a fine line between, selling real estate, right? Because that's what you do, right? That's how you make money. So it must be a fine line between like, okay, we have to really make sure that we do get the real estate info out there and not get caught up in what's happening at Disney World or a new Target coming up or whatever it is. How do you find that balance?
I literally just use the 3-bucket system, and it's, if you look on my Instagram or on my YouTube, it literally just goes and rotates those 3 over and over again. And so I'm just constantly trying to put out an equal amount, a third, and a third. Because what was happening is I was doing, like, I started this on YouTube first, and it was like builder tours, and I was getting people moving to the area, and they would call me about new construction. I'm like, okay, cool. I don't want to get too niche into that kind of thing. So eventually I added like area tours. And then I noticed that, well, dang, a lot of people are watching me buying a house with us, then unsubscribing because they're like, well, I already know the area, or I already know the neighborhoods. I don't need Ken anymore. Or, it's like not good information to know forever. And then I noticed I was like 90% of the leads were buyers inbound, which is fine because we're one of the fastest growing cities in the country. But I wanted more seller business and more people that lived here that wanted to move within Orlando. And so we started introducing news, and it was like, okay, if I can dominate or at least have enough info out there, well, people will subscribe and then never unsubscribe, join our newsletter, which has now got, 35,000 people that get that multiple times a week. We want them to join and then not subscribe or unsubscribe. And so those 3 buckets consistently rotated keeps us growing and keeps people engaged.
I love it. I want to go back a little bit to your video marketing and just what your strategies are to help with like boosting and essentially your SEO and video marketing. Is there any kind of, strategy around that? Can you share with the audience what you do?
Yeah, we're 100% organic. We don't pay for ads yet. I'm open to it, and yet I just don't know it well enough to where I'm like, I know if I went and dropped X amount of dollars, I would get Y amount of return. So we're strictly SEO based and organic on all platforms. And so on YouTube, it's really understanding the algorithm and what YouTube likes. And they also like, what's fun, YouTube doesn't like me doing theme park content. So I very rarely do it on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah. We were introduced like, because they've pigeonholed me into like the real estate news guy. Every time I do real estate and news,
the algorithm doesn't like you. There's not some guy at the top of YouTube going, I don't like that Ken Pozek. It's the algorithm. Okay.
It's the algorithm.
Yeah, it's the algorithm. They've got me kind of in a box. And so you got to work towards your algorithm and figure out like who's your ideal client, shoot content for them, shoot better content, and you will start getting more views. But for me, it's focusing in on what is SEO. If you understand search engine optimization for Google, then you can understand it for YouTube. And then really slowing down to understand the mechanics of a thumbnail, like what makes a really good thumbnail on YouTube. Because you can make the most baller video ever.
Yeah.
But if it clicks on the thumbnail, they'll never see it. So there's a lot that goes into it from a strategy perspective to make sure that we get the most amount of eyeballs.
Let me ask you about your thumb. Oh, sorry, Leslie. I didn't mean
that's okay. After you.
Oh, thank you. Let me ask you about your thumbnail. 2 things, your thumbnail and then this SEO thing again. Mr. Beast, I remember him saying that he creates his thumbnail before he makes the content.
Yeah.
How do you, because the thumbnail is so important, right? Like so many people just throw it away. They like to take a screenshot of one of the clips in the video, and that's the thumbnail. Yeah. How do you come up with a thumbnail similar to what he does, or how do you figure out what it's going to look like to get the most clicks?
Yeah. So like when we're out shooting the video, I'm usually looking at what other collaterals do I need to take pictures of while we're out and about. So whether it's a lake shot or it's me in front of a house or me in front of a restaurant, whatever it might be, and we'll snap a picture. If we don't get one we love, then we do just scrub the entire video until we find one that we like. And then we take it into our editing software, clean it up, sharpen it, brighten my eyes, brighten my teeth, like all this kind of stuff that actually matters psychologically. Daryl Eves, who wrote the book, The YouTube Formula, he talks about this whole psychological kind of thing in regards to click-through rate. And if you can see the whites of someone's eyes and they're like bright, you have a higher chance of getting a click-through than no person on a thumbnail. So that's why you notice like Mr. Beast is like super clear. His eyes are super white. He'll try he'll oscillate back and forth on his thumbnails between like the
Yeah.
like the grin.
Or like the
Yeah, exactly.
Just get a big box of icing.
Pointing
Yeah,
at
exactly.
something.
Yeah.
Hey.
Pointing at something. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Like the things that get the most clicks are really subconscious.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
Right?
if you're going against other people in the same niche, like whether, I mean, obviously this is a real estate thing, but you know, if you look on YouTube and you've got somebody in your town that's also looking at the same kind of content as you or doing the same content as you, do the opposite of whatever their thumbnails look like. If they're green and blue, you are yellow and red, and just try to stand out when people are scrolling through, because that's what a thumbnail is.
Yeah.
It's the scroll to where they say, that's the one I'm looking for.
Love that, dude. And one more question. I want to get a little deeper into SEO. What should somebody do? Like, because there's so many tools behind YouTube that can help you get more visibility, like geotagging, hashtags, you know, what you put in your description. Give me like 2 or 3 things that someone should do with the back end of their video to get more traffic organically.
Yeah. So the title and description are the next things that are the most important. And the title tells YouTube, what is this video about? And so, don't go like the thing I think a lot of realtors I see doing now is they keyword stuff their titles. So the titles on mobile, you can see 55 characters of that.
Okay.
And so if you go like 60 characters where it creates an ellipsis, that's fine. But don't be like moving to Orlando, Florida, the best towns to live in, watch this video. Like they make this massively long keyword stuffed kind of like title. That's ridiculous. Like you want it to read like a newspaper or like a TMZ article. You won't believe the top 3 things about living in Orlando. Something like that does really well. Because you're both signaling to YouTube what the video is about and also helping somebody that's scrolling through that's like, well, maybe I will believe it. Who are you to tell me I won't believe it? Like, you know, and they click on it. So that's number 1. Number 2 would be the description. Your first 200 characters of the description matters a ton for SEO. As you get deeper in the description, it kind of loses its moxie and like why it's important or not. So are you thinking about moving to Orlando? This video, we're going to cover the top 3 areas that you might consider about living if you're considering relocating to Florida, something like that. Like that would be their first 200 characters. And then after that, you can get into a little bit more of the description. And then your call to action is important too. Hey, don't forget to subscribe. Here's how you get a hold of me. Any kind of pertinent information about your brokerage that you need to have for your state could go underneath that. And then the third thing would be tags. I think you want to do both broad tags and hyper local tags. So it could be like real estate, home tour, go really, really broad, but then also get very, very specific, because again, you're trying to teach YouTube what this video is about based on what's there, but then also the search history and the search that the consumer is going after.
Awesome.
I've heard of that too, really working. Can we talk a little bit about just how often you create a video and just like what a day in your life looks like with that content and that preparation?
Yeah. So on Wednesdays, I've got a 90-minute time block where I will do research. So I spend probably $15,000 to $18,000 a year on data and subscriptions. I have it for New York Times, Wall Street Journal. There's something called the Dodge Report that you can look at permits in your state and figure out what's coming before anybody else does. This is actually one of the things the news uses, and that's like thousands of dollars a year. But we use that so I can say, hey, here's the new regional park that's coming. Here's the permits that they submitted to the local county, and here's what the renderings are going to look like. And we've broken multiple stories that were like $1 billion spends that Disney was doing before the Orlando Business Journal did.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And that's like, that's like I
Worth
like
it.
right?
That's huge, dude. I love that.
And so I'll take that 90 minutes and I'll go through all of these different things, and I'll try to pull from one of those 3 buckets: the real estate, theme parks, and living in Orlando. What's something that I can talk about on Thursday when I go shoot. And then Thursday morning is my content day. I show up here at 9 o'clock in the studio and I shoot shorts just like this. I just say like, hey, this is what's coming to the area. You won't believe X, Y, and Z. And I shoot 30 to 45-second shorts, send that over to my short form editor for the next week. Then midday, I will go out with my videographer, who's also like my YouTube editor, and we'll shoot for 2 or 3 hours based on whatever the video of the week is. I'll go out, answer emails, that sort of thing. And then on Thursday nights, I come here at 7 o'clock and I do a live show. And so that show, we take clips from that and turn it into shorts for TikTok and Instagram. And then we also take the audio from that and put it up on Spotify and Apple Music and podcasts and that sort of thing. So we're able to repurpose a lot of the content without me having to shoot a lot more by doing that system. So Thursday is like my content day. I almost never miss. And that's basically it. So 90 minutes on Wednesday, all day Thursday.
Cool.
That's super regimented, and I love it. And it doesn't seem like it takes you that long to actually create like you're doing all your video content in one day, right? Or are you doing it throughout the week as well?
Just all on Thursdays, unless it's like a special opening or like an event where like Universal has us out to Halloween Horror Nights or something like that, and we go through the houses and like there's one-off specials like that. But no, for the most part, it's all just done on Thursday.
So, I mean, you've got a lot of high-end equipment at this point, right? But it didn't always work that way. So let's kind of talk a little bit about what you started out with in terms of technology, what you use to shoot your videos, and what you're using now.
Yeah, I mean, so two things. Like I didn't start out with video, and I was never really comfortable on camera. I'm sure the first time you interviewed me 5-6 years ago, you were like, "This guy's a hack." So
I was like, this guy's going nowhere.
This guy's nowhere. This guy's a mess. But I started with my cell phone, man. I mean, like we've got HD, you shoot at 4K. The new cell phone's amazing. And so it was my cell phone, no mic. It was just me walking around, downtown Celebration, downtown Orlando, doing builder tours, just, holding it like this. Eventually I got a gimbal, like an Osmo gimbal, because I drink a lot of coffee and I'm shaky. And I would go home and edit it on iMovie, and I would get some royalty-free music from YouTube, or eventually I've got Epidemic Sound. But I did the first 150 videos myself, and it was just me figuring it out by using YouTube and saying, okay, what's a hook, and what is B-roll, and what's a jump cut, and understanding the process of creating a video and what makes a good one and what doesn't. And then one of the things that Daryl Eves talks about, I followed him for years now, he talks about analyzing and improving. Like you put out a video, go back and watch it and like look at your analytics. YouTube gives you so many things to look at, and now so does Instagram and TikTok, where you can go back and see average watch time, view duration, click-through rate, all of where are people watching from, what do they search to get to your videos. There's so many things you can do to improve and make better content. So that's I started with my cell phone, and then I hired an editor I found her on Upwork. She lived in Nebraska. I would just still shoot it myself, but I was not the best editor. So I would put it in a Dropbox. 2 days later, she'd send me the finished product. And I did that for a couple of years. Then I hired a contract person would follow me around, and he would also edit. And then now this new iteration of where we're at, just here in 2023, we've got a full media team. I mean, short form editor, long form editor, who's a videographer. We've got staff writers now. We've got our bloggers. We've got a media manager who makes all this happen. We've got an in-house graphics design person. And so over the past 5 years, I went from me and a cell phone to like a proper media company.
Love it.
That's so cool.
That's so cool. So I just want agents out there to know this isn't going to happen overnight. Like you're not going to be Ken tomorrow, right? Like you really started out at the bottom with this. And, I don't like the term hustle, but you did hustled your way to this media conglomerate. You know what I mean? It's crazy how the evolution happens.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the reason why people don't do this is it's a long play. Like, I mean, there were months where we got 0 leads, and, then there's other months we had 400 or 500 leads come through from content. But it's really made everything easier. And I think that if they can look at my story and say, hey, it works, all I need to do is put in the work and go do it. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious about a little bit more about your leads that you capture through your videos. Like, can you give us kind of an idea of how often you get leads a week or a day and how you handle those leads with your team?
Yeah, so through all of our channels, we get somewhere between 500 and 600 leads a month, which is actually down. It was more like seven.
Wow.
Organic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so
Wow.
it used to be like, a year ago or like Q1 of 22, which when everybody was going crazy, like we were getting 700, 800 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's definitely pulled back as the market's pulled back, but still, and they convert really high. I mean, again, we're selling 50, 60 homes a month, and the great majority of it comes from our content
Well,
strategy.
they're purposeful leads. Like they're watching your videos and they're taking the time to reach out to you. It's not, they're not coming across like a forced registration on a website.
Yeah, and like we do that, right? So we force register on our website,
Mm-hmm.
our orlandoreal.com. We force register for newsletters. We force register if they do want to look at so many houses, right? We are trying, like, hey, if we send them back to our website one way or the other, they find us organically through SEO. We are going to force that and follow up. But many times it's just, my call to action on my YouTube channel is, hey, if
Mm-hmm.
you're looking to buy or sell a house anywhere in Central Florida, I want to be your real estate resource of choice. Email me info@pozekgroup.com or call the number in the description below. And that's it. And so we've got a number that's set up specifically for YouTube and an email that's set up specifically for YouTube. So we know that if it ever comes through those, that came from YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Even
Got it.
usually it's like, hey, we've been following you for 2 years. We're so excited to retire, or we want to buy an Airbnb, or we live local and we need to sell and then buy, and we love your content. But every once in a while, they just call in and they say like, hey, I'm looking to sell my house. And because we know it came from that phone number, we know it came from YouTube.
That's
Wow.
that's a great way to track.
Can I follow up
Let's
a little bit on
Yeah, go
that
ahead.
before
Go
we
ahead.
move on? Just
Yeah, for
because,
sure.
we talk a lot about online leads in our ecosystem, and a lot of agents just either they don't follow up with them appropriately, they don't know how to handle objections. They don't just, they really don't have that skill set.
Yeah.
So, as far as your team goes, what kind of training and support have you provided through online lead generation? And can you give us kind of an idea of just failing forward or any kind of ahas that you all came across in that journey?
Yeah. So 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we were order takers. We all were. And so we had way more leads than we can handle. And we dropped the ball so many times because there was just so much influx. And so just being very transparent and vulnerable. So we switched CRMs and got very purposeful on follow up. And then how many leads an agent can actually handle. We kind of refined that as a team because I've got 24 agents. Last year was 16. The year before that was 10. And so like when we were just 10 agents, we're like, how many leads can actually somebody handle, especially at this caliber, and close at a reasonable amount? Because I encourage people in our videos, hey, it doesn't matter how early you're reaching out. If you're looking 5 years from now, call us. If you're looking 5 minutes from now, you should have already called us. And you've got everybody in between. So how many leads can somebody actually handle? We think that number is like roughly 100 active leads that are going to convert sometime over the next year or two. The rest of those go into our what we call the pool account. And so people are calling through that when they're a little slow. New agents call through that. And we've got 14,000 leads in our pool account that people are constantly calling through. And then we now have ISAs calling through those as well. So we've got one that just came on with us. We've got a second one joining us soon. And so their full-time job is just going to be coordinate the leads that come in and then calling through that pool account to help people long-term. So we haven't figured it out 100%, but our conversion continues to get better.
Cool.
Hey, so
Love it.
technology and social media and YouTube and algorithms and all of these things can be very overwhelming because they're changing constantly.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of agents get frustrated because, one day they're doing it this way, and then the next day things are completely different and they have to rethink their strategy. How are you staying updated with all of the latest trends and technologies with video marketing, the way you film your videos to like how they're getting put out there into the world and reaching people? What are you doing to keep up with all of those things?
So we're doing two things. One, we do a Monday morning quarterback as the video team and I. We sit down on Monday and say, how did last week perform? What TikTok things popped off? What Instagram things popped off? What YouTube? Let's watch our average view duration and what can we do to maybe improve? So we look internal first because many times it's so easy, Nick. You know this, when people like throw out content and it doesn't take off and they're like, oh, the algorithm. Like, I mean, listen, there is something to it. And the more you understand the algorithm, the more reach you'll get. But most of the time it's because your content sucks. And so like you should slow down and just look inside first and say, okay, I need to get better. And then once you do that, it's pretty easy to stay on top of it. Every time like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, they put out something new, you should be an early adopter because they're going to be pushing that new thing. If that's something new in the stories over on Instagram or the Hey Shorts, they didn't know what the heck they were doing at first, but like they've started now figured that out. And that's like a big deal. So you should be going on YouTube and uploading shorts in between your long form. They're also just introducing now podcasting on YouTube and you know, YouTube's going hard. They want to be the media source for all things like YouTube TV. I cut the cable. I have YouTube TV. That's it. And every sports thing you watch, YouTube's everywhere, you know? And so they're here to stay. So we might as well just continue to play with the new toys that they give us.
Well, how would you like, what resources would somebody use to keep up with all of the changes and how to start leveraging these changes? Like, yeah, I noticed, you know, YouTube threw in podcasts. Okay, how would I use that? Or like, you know, stories now has, you know, now figured out how it's going to be used. How would I figure that out? Where would I go to get that information? So where are you going to figure that stuff? Because like, you know, one day you'll see creators all of a sudden doing this, they're all doing the same type of video, like they're in this group and all of them called each other and they're like, hey, let's start doing this green screen thing where we're pointing and we got this article behind. Everyone starts doing those things out of nowhere, right? Where do they figure that out?
They're just R&D in, right? So they're researching and looking at other agents and saying, oh, it's working for them, but maybe it's not. Like, that's the thing you got to realize is like going in, and it's pretty easy for me now. Like, I don't know, and it probably is easy for you, but like if you go to someone's Instagram and they've got 50,000 followers and no engagement on their content, they bought followers.
For sure.
Right. And it's really like evident. You can't game that system over on YouTube. Like there's no buying bot followers over on, not that I've seen. But you have to look at like what's actually working and then maybe DM those people and say, hey, I noticed you're putting out these pointing things. Do you have people reaching out? And if they just say no, then like, that's not what you should be doing. I follow like Lucas O'Keefe over on Instagram. He's a great, like, he's just talks about the algorithm all the time. Obviously the CEO Moserio over on Instagram is like super, I think I said his name.
Yeah, he's great.
He puts stuff out all the time. Like, hey, here's what the algorithm is doing. This is what we're going to be working on. This is the new feature. You can follow creators over on like X or Threads for YouTube. They talk about here's what's coming for YouTube and what you should be looking out for. So just becoming a student of it. Like, it's not, that's the thing I run into when I teach this stuff often. It's like, that sounds great. I want your results. I don't want your all the other stuff you have to do. And what you have to do is become a student of these platforms to figure out what works. And then you're also just testing shit. Like you're seeing what works and what doesn't work and then refining.
Well, and I think this also goes back to just like do what you love and like create the content that coincides with that, right? So for you, Ken, it's like you love Orlando. So you're doing all this amazing content in Orlando and on Orlando and being like, you know, that person that is the hyper local person that, you know, everybody wants to hire because you know it all. So
Right.
keep it simple and get back to like what you love doing. And, you know, we interviewed Jason Abrams the other day and he calls that immersive marketing or immersive farming. And so, you know, it's like you could take something simple as that as where was the city that you grew up in that you love, that you know the most about, and be that person that knows everything.
It's good.
And then create your content from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You first.
I'll just say two things around that. Like I find this trend, speaking of trends, I feel like I see this trend of realtors doing content for other realtors. And they do it in lines of, well, I want more agent referrals. And that's fine. Like over on Facebook, I talk a lot about my team. I talk a lot about my sales, but I also talk a lot about our city because I want to brand myself as the Orlando guy. I'm not putting out the top 5 tips for realtors or, you know, the top things that realtors need to know. Like realtors aren't my audience. Like I want referrals, but the amazing thing is that realtors follow my stuff because they want to copy it. And then we get referrals. And I also have massive amounts of like local people that will actually transact with me. And that's why I shoot the content the way that we do, because I want more leads, not more agents following me. And so that's why I think a lot of people get into selling selling to realtors instead of selling real estate, because it's like, well, I've built this audience. My audience is realtors. Now I have to monetize it somehow. And so, you know, just be careful with that. I think that there's amazing content people out there. This is an amazing podcast, amazing, you know, community thing that you guys are building together that's actually meaningful and making an impact on the industry. Not everybody can do that. And so I think thinking that through a little bit more would be important for people.
And by the way, there's something about every location. You know, I'll just use Michigan where I am, for example. I could do what Ken's doing around, you know, the Great Lakes.
Yep.
Right. Or lake life, because there's 63,000 bodies of water in Michigan.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like every location, even in my area of northern New Jersey, like what's happening, you know, 45 minutes from New York City, and create a channel around that. Like Leslie, you're in Denver.
Yeah.
Right? No, are you in Denver? Where are you?
Well, yeah, I'm in Highlands
Denver
Ranch,
area,
but
Denver-ish.
Denver's yeah. But you know, there's somebody in Colorado who's doing Instagram at a high level, very similar to what you're doing, Ken, and she calls it the Evergreen Experience.
Oh, that's
and
pretty sweet.
she lives in Evergreen, and she and her husband are like the Evergreen mayors. You know, like they're the people that they want to go to learn what's happening about Evergreen. And then, by the way, they sell real estate.
It's huge.
So yeah,
huge.
anybody could do it.
Yeah, and the people are like, oh, Orlando's, you know, you got the theme parks and all that kind of stuff. I chose theme parks, I enjoy it, but Nick, like, you know, I'm from Detroit. Every time I go back to visit my parents or my in-laws, like I'm shocked at how much growth there is in downtown Detroit and like some of the suburbs. You could very easily dominate that, and it's like, because people want news, and they want something that's not just constantly like murders and hijackings and crazy stuff like that. They want to know the good stuff. Like, I want to be proud of where I live. And so go show that off. I mean, Orlando has plenty of the bad stuff. I just choose not to talk about it.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, very refreshing compared to the media. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. We could talk like all day on this stuff. But Ken, you probably need to go and do some videos. That's what I would assume. Or enjoy your Friday. But we appreciate you being on with us. This has been great.
Thanks, Ken.
We appreciate you. Thanks, man.
Good to see you guys.
You too. Have a great day.